Welcome, Internet players! If you don't know who I am, I call myself the Wrestling Shuffler. And in this video, I'll put my cards on the table about the Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins feud. So, without any further ado, let's start playing. So, my two cards are these ones. The Jack of Hearts and the Jack of Clubs. I didn't have a Jack of Spades, but, so this had to do. Now, I hear many people saying that Dean Ambrose should have been the heel and Seth Rollins the babyface. Now, I don't know about you, but in my personal feeling, from a character standpoint, I believe that by accident or otherwise, WWE put them in perfect roles. Yeah, I'm telling you why I feel this way. Because when most people analyze Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, they pay too much attention on mic skills, performance, and all that stuff. They concentrate and focus much more on the performer, where in reality, you should focus more on the character. What makes sense character-wise. Because, to me, Dean Ambrose's character is much more babyface-ish, if that's even a word, than most people ever thought to brought up. Because if you look at Dean Ambrose to me just reminds me a confused street kind of guy that, without knowing any better, had to fight every day in his life just to survive. If you've seen Dean Ambrose's character, I don't believe that all this psychoness and whatnot. Dean Ambrose to me reminds me of a guy that just do things by... He's pretty impulsive. He doesn't have control in his actions. He reminds me of a guy, if you poke him one time with a stick, he attacks you like a vicious dog with rabies. And what many people say, oh, he's like the Joker and all that stuff. I don't believe the Joker is a good comparison to Dean Ambrose. Because the Joker, when you see the Joker talk, even in Heath Ledger, you sense that the Joker, aside from the thing on his lips, you notice that the Joker has control over his actions. He does things in a smart way, in a cerebral way, much like a Freddy Krueger and all of those guys. Those guys know and control how much evil they are and get. They do things in a smart and intellectual way, in a strategic way. Dean Ambrose to me doesn't have those things. To me, Dean Ambrose's character is more of a guy does the things by impulsive. He's pretty impulsive. He just attacks and reacts as the things they do to him. So, for me, Dean Ambrose, it's much more babyface-ish because every one of us knows a guy, or probably seen a guy, that's been neglected by society, that has to grow up on the streets, doesn't know any better, that his mom and the parents or whatnot were drunks, addicts, and all that stuff, and he had to fight for his life. And Dean Ambrose only knows how to fight in his life, physically. He doesn't know any better. That's one way that his character perceives me as. And if you look from under promos from Jon Moxley and Dean Ambrose, although they were pretty good, but when he talks about the social worker sticking his mom and whatnot, can you really hate the guy for that? I, for one, feel sorry. full unbelief. That's more of a baby face tactic than heel. When I hear that stuff, I don't hate Dean Ambrose. I have sympathy for Dean Ambrose. That's why I believe, from a character standpoint, Dean Ambrose is perfect for this role as a babyface. Because who never, even in the Shield, who never had a friend that, he's crazy, he's off the wall, he can be really vicious, but you don't hate them, you feel sorry for them, and understand, hey, this guy are rough. I don't hate this guy. By the contrary, this guy to me could be the greatest friend, much like a puppy, as anyone can be, because he's loyal like that. Most people that are crazy and don't have that much self-control or crazy or whatnot can be good friends. And to me, that's what Dean Ambrose is like. Seth Rollins, on the other hand, Seth Rollins to me is a perfect heel in this sense, as a character. Because Seth Rollins come across to me as a guy playing the club's Jack with Evolution. Seth Rollins reminds me of a guy that's too smart, too understanding, too intellectual, too hipster for his own good, that it sometimes rings so smart and thinking he's so ahead of everybody else, you just want to punch the living hell out of this guy. That's what Seth Rollins reminds me. Nothing in Seth Rollins says to me that he deserves sympathy. Even because if you see him in one of his interviews, he's always professional. He's always in control. He's always played safe, always playing smart, being eclectic, like in some ways being arrogant. And that to me speaks much more of an heel side than Dean Ambrose. Because Seth Rollins is smart, is playing smart, he's cerebral. Even when he went in the Shield, Seth Rollins was the one controlling Dean Ambrose. He was the one putting common sense and being the architect of the group. So from that aspect alone, Seth Rollins is well suited to be a heel. Because unlike Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins comes across as a smart, arrogant, intellectual, witty, annoying, nerdy geeks that for some reason, if you have a best friend like that, gets on your nerves and what, just punch him in the face and say, shut up, you're too rational. That's why I believe Seth Rollins, character-wise, is a perfect heel. How can you hate Dean Ambrose? Dean Ambrose, to me, comes across as a teenager with issues than anything else. And you can't hate a guy like that. And compared to Seth Rollins. So, if you look from a character standpoint, Seth Rollins is much more of an heel due to his presentation and probably him as a person than Dean Ambrose is. Nothing about Dean Ambrose's character says, I should hate the guy. And most of Seth Rollins' character said, I really don't have that much sympathy for the guy. I have more things that I hate about Seth Rollins' character than Dean Ambrose's, to be quite honest. So, WWE has a real chance to pull this off, to make an intriguing rivalry, dare I say, beginning at SummerSlam and ending at TLC. You can have Ambrose lose most of their matches and Seth Rollins playing the ultimate opportunist kind of edge thing. That would work because you sense that Seth Rollins plays smart. Ambrose just plays rough, and you lead into it in a TLC match between those two guys. Remember how Dean Ambrose was attacked? Was by a chair. Imagine Seth Rollins or even Dean Ambrose at Survivor Series or whatever in a team was attacked by a table. Even in Money in the Bank. Imagine Dean Ambrose would attack Seth Rollins with a ladder. After Survivor Series, you could have a tables, ladders, and chairs match between these two guys when you have the blow-off feud. That's just me though, so WWE can really milk this upper mid-card rivalry to at least that point. But these are my thoughts. And have these two guys be unscripted. These two characters can be much more complex and human than most of us see right now. But that's just me if I was a booker in the WWE. So, this is my two cards about Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. I want to know what your cards on the table about this. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm off point? Or whatever. This has been the Wrestling Shuffler. And all I got to say is, see you next card game!